This line is probably one of my first lines I ever said on camera in a professional job, ever. Maybe my first line. Hi, I'm Carey Mulligan, and I'm going to guess some of my film quotes. I don't want to lose my virginity to a piece of fruit, is from An Education.
I don't want to lose my virginity to a piece of fruit.
Being nominated for An Education was insane. I remember the first time I saw it, I rang up my mum and I said, Mum, it's so boring and everyone's gonna hate it. And I said, my face doesn't do anything and I look so stupid. And I just found the whole thing sort of terrifying. And then this whole whirlwind happened. So when I was nominated, it was like, I guess it's 5 a.m. It was really early. And I was in LA. I rang my mum and she was lecturing at the time. She was a lecturer at university. And she was taking a class trip somewhere and she had just bollocked her, can I say bollocked? She had just bollocked her class for using their phones, you know. So she'd just been like, put your phones away, whatever, and told them off. So I rang her and it rang for ages and she finally picked up and she was like, hello? I said, Mum, I just got nominated for an Oscar. And she went, darling, I'm just gonna call you back. And then hung up and I was like, what the fuck? So then I just stood there and, you know, raged for a second and then I found out why she had done that. But yeah, it was just wild. I don't think I even thought it was gonna go into cinemas. It was just this sort of tiny indie film that we shot in like a month and it was a completely wild experience. Oh, I hope she'll be a fool. That's the best thing a girl can be in this world, a beautiful little fool, is from The Great Gatsby.
And I hope she'll be a fool. That's the best thing a girl in this world can be.
It was a bizarre thing because I went from sort of low-budget indie films, lots of British TV and theatre, and then went to Sydney and made this enormous film. But I remember thinking that Leo was so lovely. Oh, I love him. It didn't matter where the camera was, he was still incredible. I sort of thought, well, when the camera's not on him, he doesn't really need to do anything as Leonardo DiCaprio. And every time it was on me and he was like next to the camera or behind the lens, he was just so, it was as good as it was the other way around. And I thought that was so generous. And it was all just mad. It was such a mad sort of Baz Luhrmann sort of circus, you know. It was just so much bigger than anything I had been at that point. I felt like the casting process was sort of like winning American Idol. It was all so kind of big, you know, but I loved it. It was a blast. Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is? Is from Promising Young Woman.
Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is?
I do remember that it's very hard to say, I can't even do it now, woman's worst nightmare. At one point I said, can I call myself a girl instead? Because it's easier to say in an American accent, but woman's worst, anyway, I can't do it. But yeah, very difficult to say, very good line. When I found out I was nominated for Promising Young Woman, I was at home. I decided to watch. I wasn't going to, I just thought I'll just not think about it. I'll just go and mow the lawn or something. And then I decided that I was going to watch it. So my husband and he put it on his TV screen in the studio, away from the house, away from the children. But my name alphabetically is quite late in the alphabet, so it really looked dicey for a second there. And do you know what? He'd written out a bunch of little Post-it notes and put them all over the screen of reasons to not be sad if I wasn't nominated. But anyway, we didn't need them in the end, but it was very lovely. Emerald's direction was more, you know, she gave me a mood board, she gave me music. Britney Spears' Toxic was sort of top of the playlist. Paris Hilton, Stars Are Blind. You know, she kind of built the world for me. It was kind of a holistic thing. It was like, this is what it's going to look like, sound like, feel like. It should be like a beautiful candy that you open and eat it and realize that it's poisoned. You know, that was always the sort of sense. And that there was an incredibly dark comedy to the whole thing. We feel they'll speak out if they're not the only ones, safety in numbers. That took me a second to, I thought it was suffragette for a second. That's from She Said. We feel they'll speak out if they're not the only ones, safety in numbers. The secret to playing Megan Twohey, I think, was, first of all, just not being completely overwhelmed by how cool she is. Megan Twohey and Jodie Cantor are such deeply impressive women. And what I loved about the story was that it was putting at the forefront these women who did ignite a movement that really changed the world. You know, Megan and Jodie, but also the survivors that came forward. So I think I felt humbled by the whole thing. And what I loved about the way that Maria Schrader directed it is that it was sort of lacking in sentimentality. It was really factual. There was something pragmatic about the film, and I think that was putting forward just the truth, just things that were undeniable, like this film could be, this book that it was based on, she said, but the film could also be somewhat of a kind of time capsule, just to say this happened irrefutably, you know, this has been proven that this happened. And then the result is, we can all see and is still, you know, happening today, but that this moment happened where all these brave women came forward and did this thing that seemed impossible. And then, like, the world has changed after that. So I didn't think a huge amount about journalism, but more just sort of trying to honor who she was as a person and her courage in doing what she did. Oh, we need to build up a very strong connection. This is from Maestro.
Oh, we need to build up a very strong connection.
Bradley said, we were going to shoot this stuff where they were young and they were sort of falling in love. And we had this bit where we were sitting back to back. And he said, I want us to play a game. And we're just going to play a game. And I'm going to film it. And the camera is going to come in on a crane shot and it's going to find us playing this game. And my brother and I, when we were little, played this game where we would pretend that we had a telepathic connection, or I would pretend that we had it. So my brother would tell my mum the number that he was thinking of, and then he would send it to me, you know, telepathically. And out of sight, my mum would go like that. And I'd go, 3. And my brother was just completely blown away. And he'd be like, oh my God, we're psychic. And for years, for years, until we were teenagers, this carried on. Anyway, so when we were sitting in the scene, I thought, well, let's play the numbers game. So we started the scene, I said, give me a number between 1 and 10. And so that's how we kind of started playing that game, and then play it again later in the film, and it became their kind of little motif. It was amazing because what he did as a director, you know, sometimes he would give me notes traditionally like directors do, but more often than that, he would direct me through his performance. So he would, as Lenny, do a scene, and the way that he was molding the take, it would be to elicit a certain response out of me. So he was directing me by changing his performance to make my performance change. So, you know, it was so subtle, you kind of didn't feel like you were being directed. You know, he'd done 5 years of prep, so by the time he got on set, he just was that character. And so I didn't, you know, it took a lot of the acting out of it for me, because, you know, it was just responding to someone. The regiments are coming. They're to be stationed the whole winter in the village just right there. It's a period drama. Far from the Madding Crowd, or Pride and Prejudice? Oh, the regiments are coming. Excited Kitty Bennett acting, yeah.
The regiments are coming! Oh, it's so good to be stationed the whole winter.
This line is probably one of my first lines I ever said on camera in a professional job, ever. Maybe my first line. I think I only had about 6 lines in Pride and Prejudice, but I was in it a lot, because I was sort of in it just giggling in the background and sort of running around parties with Jena Malone. But this was one of my lines. I was 19. I turned 19 on the job. Yeah, so I was 18 when we started shooting. I turned 19 like a week into filming or something. Yeah. Oh, I love Jena Malone so much. I also had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I really had no idea what I was doing. Lydia and Kitty were sort of somewhat like twins. So I just copied her. I just did everything that she did. She was such a pro, and she really took me under her wing and was so wonderful to me. All of the sisters, we all just loved each other. It was like a real family. It was so lovely.